Right guys, Jack here, JBF Music and Guitar Lessons. What I've got for you today is a reaction slash analysis to Lovebites, the guitarist slash pianist from there, lots of slashes in this one, doing our own interpretation of Helloween's song Eagle Fry Free. Before we crack into it, I know I've gone on, but I'll go on for a little bit longer to say a huge shout out and a massive thank you to the ever awesome Rabbi Rabs, Matt Hortzman, Glenn Kelly, Steve Williams, Rebecca Hay and Dales Goes for the support on Patreon. If you have the means and inclination to support the channel, make sure to head to patreon.com/JBF Music. So shout out to Neil for giving this one. I'm at a slight loss as to what to talk about here, so I'm just going to go through it, and anything that jumps out of me that might be of mild interest I shall hopefully elaborate on. I do quite like the stylisation of the white piano on the white chair, although I have noticed on closer inspection there's a little bit of the paint chipping away on said chair, so that might be a chair that's used for touring. It's just the wear and tear of the road, I'm not sure though. And the black dress matching the black keys as well. So here, I think she might have re-harmonised it. I'm going to work out what she's doing and compare it to the original, I think. Okay, so she's playing it a semitone higher than the original. I think the original is in E flat. Neither here nor there. Yes, that's an E. In my head, the harmony changes there. Right, let's listen to it and find out instead of just speculating. Yeah, it's a D. Yeah. So, as usual, half wrong, half right. The original goes from an E to a D. It's not half a step down, it's just in standard tuning. So I'll pop on the original, I'll come back to this one, and you might hear, kind of feel the differences. We've got this E to the D. Whereas here, I think it's just an E and another E. Yeah, cool. So what this is doing is, if you listen for that second, dum, it's creating a bit more tension in this version here. Listen to this bit. That ding is probably, is it an F sharp? Yeah, so she's playing an F sharp over that E to get a lot more crunch. Whereas the Helloween version, they go up to the D, and when you get an F sharp over a D, you get a major third, so you're implying a D major chord. So the difference, I suppose, in these versions, I'm just going to check my tuning here, bear with me. So the difference is basically the melody that's kind of happening here. I'll play it on guitar and I'll try and do a hard botched version of putting the two things together, right? So that's the melody in isolation, right? The way she's doing it here, as I said, there was an E underneath it, so we've got this. And so ominous. And then here she's got the F sharp over the E, so we get this quite tense. Whereas in the Helloween version, I don't think it goes to there actually. The Helloween version is kind of different. I think the way they play it pedals with the open E. I'll play it first and explain what happens. So I think they go. So I think that's how they play it. They might not do this open E thing in between. So to slow it down, I'm going. So this, I keep coming back to the open string, but the basic melody. So you can hear it's different. What they're doing is using the natural minor, whereas here she's using the harmonic minor. It's a fancy way of saying, instead of going, she's going, which makes it sound more classical. So if you're wondering why does this sound more classical than the original, part of it is because it's been re-harmonised. Re-harmonising is a fancy way of saying you're playing slightly different chords underneath it. So chords that still work with the melody for, you know, You could reharmonize something and make it not work at all. That could be your jam. But there's usually more than one chord that can be applicable to a situation, and depending what chord you use would more be to do with the stylistic choices and the genre. So this is a great example. If we take the Helloween one of the E, to the D, can I play this? Where can I play it? So it's a wee bit messy doing this, so you might have to bear with me, but we'd have something like the D. So because it harmonizes with the notes they're playing in a more traditional way, it's a bit less jarring. But so many thoughts to try and process. When I talked about, I'll break down what I meant by pedal or pedal point. So when I was playing the Helloween way of doing it, you can hear this bam boom bam boom. There's a note in between. Instead of just going, it's this. It's quite palm muted, so you don't really hear it that clearly. Somewhere like that kind of sound. Right? But because she's got, I believe, a classical background, because this Louise running throughout that bit, she's seeing all of these chords as having an E in the root. So the E with an E in the root makes sense. Then she's seeing the D as a D but with an E in the root. Now because she's doing this and coming from a more classical point of view, instead of using the regular minor, the natural minor, she's using the harmonic minor. There's one note difference, but it does make a... That's normal. Right, okay. So you hear normal one and classical. So it's not called the classical minor, but the harmonic minor is used in classical music a lot more than the Aeolian and the natural minor. And if you think about rock music, that's normally going to be your natural minor, or sometimes a mode called Dorian. If you take something like Yngwie, and I believe she's done a cover of his Far Beyond the Sun, so if you want me to check that out, hit me up in the comments, because that would be pretty interesting. He's a player who used the scale, this harmonic minor scale, but in like a rock context, and kind of, I'd say kind of, maybe not invented, but kind of embellished upon the neoclassical hard rock. If you're interested in Yngwie's style, I've done tons of videos on him, so I'll link to it with the eye up there. I say not invented because there was guys like Randy Rhoads, Richie Blackmore, and I suppose Brian May to some extent as well, who had already been integrating elements of classical music into their playing. So, if like myself, you thought this still sounds good, but sounds different, and I'm not too sure why it sounds different, that would be why. She's interpreting the piece from a more classical perspective. At least that's my take on it. She might have a different one, but I'm just, this is the best I can do with the knowledge I have. And then doing, kind of adding these. You can almost hear that on like kind of a string section, playing staccato, kind of blasting that out. That would be really cool. Total side note, if they did this with arranged with an orchestra as well, that'd be awesome. Taking liberties with the... Okay. What's interesting is she's been keeping the structure, I think, pretty much the same. So there's this bit here where it goes kind of quieter. This, and in my head, I wasn't like, I'm not too sure if that bit's there, but I'm quite sure it is in the original song in the structure. But in the original version, it's maybe a bit kind of louder, whereas here she's used it as an opportunity to kind of dip the dynamics, make it quieter. So on the topic of re-harmonisation, which I don't know how much of this is getting edited out, but it should hopefully have just been quite recently. If you listen to this bit here, coming up, is it re-harmonised? Got here is kind of a it's sort of re-harmonising, but not really. It's more keeping the same chords but changing the voicing. So it sounds different, but it's essentially the same thing. I'll try and explain what I mean by that. So you have this bit here. So the melody that we hear is most prominent. Oops. Because that's kind of the highest part in the piano. The chords in the original are the same as they are here, which is... right? So I'll try and play those two bits together. So it's really quite clever because the melody she's picked out, as you can hear, works really nicely with those the underlying kind of chord progression. Play them together once more with a bit less gain. There's a lot more crunch here on that second last note. Because what she's doing is implying a dominant chord and maybe a diminished seventh to get that kind of classical tension and release. So again, this isn't a shape you tend to use too much in rock music. It does get used, but that's why Helloween have kind of opted for this. Whereas if we play it with the tritone there, instantly to me it just sounds more classical. A way to get around it, if you want to do power chords, you could go so playing that note there. This is really it's really an A7 to a D minor. So the full chord progression, just to clarify it for you, it's cool as well because there's a modulation here. We changed keys. So the bit before we've got like a D to C, D to C, then we go to this B flat, major, F major, I think. Yeah. F. I might be wrong, so correct me in the comments, but my ears are telling me B flat major, F major, A major, which is like the 5 in the minor, A major again just inverted, which you could call an A dominant 7, or if we really wanted to, we could think of it as a C sharp diminished. Sorry. It's a D minor. So you can hear that is a very classical progression when you play it like that. And when Helloween do it their way, it's just more kind of rock, isn't it? So that is, I thought it would be an interesting comparison to the one where it was re-harmonised, whereas this, I wouldn't technically call it a re-harmonised, I'd call it like re-voicing it, because if you re-harmonise something, the harmony is basically the chords, right? So you're changing the chords. If you kept the chords the same, but you're changing the notes of the chords, which ones are more prominent, I would call that a different voicing. A really simple example would be on a guitar. We can play a G like this. In fact, let's stick with the D minor, right? We could play it like this. We could play it like this, or here, and they all have slightly different feelings. It's all the same chord, all the same notes, but you can kind of create a sense of movement within a chord itself. So even if we take that, I don't re-harmonise but re-voice it, so this is still the same chord progression. Same thing, but it's got a completely different feel to it. And which voicings you choose to use or which ones you choose not to use is just a case of the more you know, the more you can play about with them, and you can decide, well, this feels a bit too sad, this feels a bit more kind of powerful. So sometimes it's experiment to see what happens, sometimes you intuitively know, oh, I want to use this inversion here or this voicing or whatever. Right, so I talked about staccato when I was listening through to it. Just to clear up what I mean by that, got this bit here. the do. If you hear a note that's very short and sharp. Okay, got it right. I think that's the right melody. As opposed to being... So the note is the same duration, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The only difference being one's the short ones where it's kind of muted straight after staccato. The longer ones you could call it legato. It's maybe not strictly true, but that's it. And it can add this different. It's just a different dynamic. It's a shift to keep things interesting, which particularly when you're doing music on a piano, grand piano, which can get very boomy if you're not careful with it. If you let everything just kind of all the notes overlap into each other too much. A very effective way to make a little punchy bit stand out, so you can go back to the kind of more elegant flowing way of playing. So I mentioned a trill as well. I'll demonstrate what that is rather than just kind of waving my hand in a regal manner. Might be there. Yeah, so it's basically you go between two notes quickly in quick succession. It's called a trill. So this one we've got a G. Yeah, we've got a brain stopped there for a second. A G to an A is the trill, and you might hear it went down to that note, which is an F. So instead of just going, this note gets decorated with this trill. You call trills and things like that are note decorations. That's what we call them. Because it's like you put a little bit of sheen over it. You've decorated it instead of just right. That kind of Brian May kind of thing. That kind of regal. You know, Yngwie likes to do them a lot as well. So I take a wee look at the solo, and if I'm feeling up to it, I might try and harmonise with it as well. So she's done a really good job of taking the guitar part and arranging it. Arranging is the word you use when you say you're taking something from one instrument or one discipline or one genre and kind of transposing it to another. You normally change the arrangement, you change the way it sounds a bit to suit the medium that you're using to play the music. I totally slopped up the trem picking there. Okay, I haven't practiced this one. But in the actual solo, rather than just playing the notes, they trem pick it. If you noticed the harmonic minor there, or you thought, well, that sounds a little bit classical, then well done, Gutiar. What Helloween tends to do is harmonise things in thirds. So if I can work this out on the fly. Right, let's give it a go. That sounds wrong. I'm going to try harmonising it a third below. Okay, I'll try that once more, but it's probably going to be a slot fest. Okay. So she might have re-harmonised it as well. I think she's using the harmonic minor there, probably the yeah, cool, right. Totally slopped the trem picking there. I need to practice that a bit more if I want to play it. But hopefully you could hear in the not so sloppy part how that harmony worked a bit nicer, because I was following the chords that she's used to re-harmonise it with rather than brute forcing the Helloween harmony over the top. And it didn't sound terrible, but there's a small clash there I could hear that I knew something could be a little bit better. So a bit of a voyage into re-harmonisation there. Hopefully it's made some sort of sense by the end of it. I know I can go off into the weeds at times. So I do apologise if I've lost a few souls along the way, but the rest of you, you'll be the soul survivors. If you have any knowledge of Helloween's discography, that's one of their songs. If not, you'd be like, that's not even a bad pun this time. You're just clicking your fingers at the camera. But huge thanks to Neil for pointing me towards that. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it got my wee brain ticking about different things you can kind of do when you're kind of interpreting pieces of music. Interpreting pieces of music. I've struggled with that word. It's like the old purple burglar alarm. Be more Lovebites and other reaction analysis in these videos, and click subscribe to keep up to date with the channel. Make sure you never miss out on new content. Patreon's the place to go if you want to show support. Failing that, a like and a comment goes a really long way. Huge outro there. Hope you guys are having a great one, as that's the most important thing.